All right, in this lesson, we're going to continue on talking about our pop source node. So we looked at our geometry where we're sourcing our particles from. We looked at how we can use groups. Let's get rid of our group for now, so I'm going to go ahead and delete that demo. So we're back to sourcing particles from our sphere. Next one I want to go ahead and look at is the birth tab here. So this controls birthing. We have some different options, and this is how how many particles we want to birth, how long we want them to live, so stuff like that, and we control here. So if we take a look at these first four inputs here, we have impulse activation, impulse count, constant activation, constant birth rate. Okay. So the impulse activation and constant activation, we can use either 0 for off or 1 for on. Right now our constant activation is turned on. We're using this. If impulse count's set at 0 and this is set at 1, this will still be turned off. Okay, so we're not birthing anything using this method up here. It's all with the constant birth rate. Okay, but let me go ahead and turn constant activation off. And instant activation, impulse activation is different from constant birth rate because the number we put in here is how many particles we're going to birth every time Houdini cooks. Okay, so if I put something in here like 5,000, okay, when it cooks right off the bat, we're birthing 5,000 particles. Okay, so make sure you have your real-time toggle on, and if we hit play, we're birthing 5,000 particles every time Houdini cooks. Okay, and since Houdini is cooking really quick in this scenario because we don't have a lot to slow it down, we're cooking 5,000 particles pretty quickly each time. Okay. All right, so that's impulse count. So if we need something, a particle count pretty quickly, and we need it to birth pretty quickly, we can go ahead and set our impulse count here. Okay. We can also go ahead and set expressions in here. We'll look at that a little later, but just know, just like any input, we can put specific expressions in here as well. So I'm going to go ahead and zero that out. I'll turn constant activation back on. So constant activation is different. So what the birth rate for constant activation, it's saying go ahead and create 5,000 particles for every second on your timeline here. Okay, so so this is at a default 24 frames per second. Okay, so for every second we're going to go ahead and create, every 24 frames we're going to create 5,000 particles. Okay, so again, it's kind of more spread out this way. We're not creating as many particles. So again, depending on how you want these things to birth, that's totally up to you and what you're trying to achieve. Okay. So 5,000, I can increase, decrease these numbers here. Okay. And one thing to look at, we can do the same thing on our particle node. So we can middle mouse click. We can see our attributes that we have on here, point attributes, point groups, so groups as well. We can see that. We can also check it out in our geometry spreadsheet. Okay, so if we go to geometry spreadsheet, it looks a little different to when we're in SOPs compared to our SOP geometry spreadsheet here. Okay, the way we take a look at our attributes is we have to go inside on our left dock over here, and we'll have to click pop object. We'll drop that down, and we'll have another a group of menus here. A lot of these, especially starting off, you're not going to really dig into too much. The main one that you're going to be mainly concerned about is this geometry option. So if I click that, you can right away see that now this starts to look like a SOP geometry spreadsheet. So we have a position, we have age, we have ID, life. So we have a whole bunch of attributes on here, velocity, that come with setting up the particle network. Okay, so that's the way we can do that. Geometry spreadsheet, pop object, and geometry to check out our attributes per particle here. Okay, so if I go back to scene view and I go ahead and play this again, these things kind of just drop. And the reason these particles just drop, it's not because of our pop source here. It's because of this gravity node we have down here in our chain. Okay, so our gravity node, if we go ahead and bypass this, and you can see our timeline reset, our simulation has reset, and if I press play, now you can see that our particles just kind of start freely floating in the air. Okay, so we got rid of gravity, but we still have some forces driving our velocity on our particles. Okay, and velocity is used quite often to drive the particles, drive the movement of our particles. Okay, and we can control those inside DOPS as well as SOPs. So if we take a look here at the sphere object, one last thing I want to take a look at on this video is the life expectancy. Okay, so right now it's set to 100 seconds, meaning that if I kind of zoom out, it's going to go longer than our 240 frames. These particles are going to live for 100 seconds. Okay, so we can control that. So we can knock this down to 1. So now that our particles, if I go ahead and press play, they'll live for 1 second and then they'll die out after 1 second. Okay, so that's a way we can shorten this or expand it depending on how long we want our particles to live. We also have a variance on that. So we don't want all the particles to die right at once. Maybe we want some to die sooner or after, just to mix it up to be more randomized so it looks more realistic. So we can do that with a variance. Okay, so if I do 0.25, okay, it'll go ahead and give us a little variance here, and you can see that some are dying more quickly, some are lasting a little longer, some are dying right at that 1 second mark. So it kind of breaks it up. It gives it more of a natural feel when we go ahead and vary the particle variance here, the life variance. Okay. All right, so that's it for this one. On the next one, we'll take a look at these attribute tabs and see about how we can control some of the velocity attributes that we have. We'll see you in the next one.